Okay, we're going to go over Chapter 9 test review. I went through ahead and highlighted the correct answers, and then I'm going to do the work next to the problem. So I'm probably not going to try to talk too much. I'm going to do the work, and then I'm going to explain it a little bit after I do it. So on number 1, the answer is 0.8 because 8 times 8 is 64, and I move my decimal 2 places. Number 2, I just set it up as 2 square roots. Square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of 49 is 7. Okay, so number 3, negative square root of 2500. Well, 5 times 5 is 25, and there's 2 zeros, so it would be 50, but then you want to keep the negative that's on the outside, so you want to get negative 50. That would be the answer for that one. Okay, and number 4, it says between what two consecutive integers is square root of 40? So I wrote down the square root of 36 is 6, the square root of 49 is 7, and in between 36 and 49 you would get square root of 40. So that's why it was between 6 and 7. Okay, for number 5 it says identify the vertex of the graph. So the vertex is the lowest or highest point. In this case it's 0 and 2. And it is going up, so it's a medium. So it's letter D. Oh, sorry, it's a minimum, not medium. I don't know, it's getting late tonight. Okay, and number 7, remember it says order the group of quadratic functions from widest to narrowest. The smaller the number, the wider the graph. And we're looking at absolute value only. So the smallest number in absolute value is 1/5. Then we have 1/3, and then we have 7. That's why it's B. Okay, number 7. We really don't have to graph it. We just need to look at the graphs that are here and identify which ones will work and which ones won't work. So if I look at my inequality, there's no line under it, so that means that it's going to be dashed, so I know I can get rid of the B and I can get rid of D. Okay, the 2 dashed lines are A and C. Since it's a sad face, there's a negative in front of the x squared, so it makes it a sad face, so it's letter A. So again, on this number 9, again, we don't have to really graph it. We just have to look at the graphs that they gave us, and it has a line under it, so I know it's going to be solid. So that means I can get rid of my B and my D, because those are dashed lines, and I know it's going to be again A or C, because it's a sad face, so there's a negative in front of the negative 2x squared. It's sad, so I know it's going to be A. Okay, on number 9, we need to put it in standard form, so I moved the 6 to the other side and made that a negative 6. I ended up with x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. My A is 1, my B is 0, my C is negative 4. This is in vertex form, so my x is 0 and my y is negative 4. Now I go through and I look at all the graphs. This is 0, positive 4. This is 0, negative 4. That's my vertex. That's the one I'm looking for. And so I have my 2 solutions, which are right here, 2 and negative 2. Okay, so number 10, I wrote my equation. There's no perfect square within 6 or 54, so I divide it by 6, I divide it by 6. I get x squared is equal to 9. I took the square root of both sides, plus or minus 3. Number 11, I did the same thing because we're solving using square root. I subtracted 20 from both sides. I ended up with x squared is equal to negative 16. I took the square root of both sides, plus or minus the square root of negative 16. But remember, we can never take the square root of a negative number, so that does not work. That's why it's no solution. Okay, for number 12, we set it to 0 because we're using the zero product property. So I subtracted 2, then divided by 2, both sides, and I got a negative 1. Added 5, divided by 5, both sides, and got a positive 1. Okay, and then number 13, I set negative 4n is equal to 0, and then 9n plus 6 is equal to 0. And then on the first one here, I divided by negative 4, divided by negative 4, and I got n is equal to 0. Then I subtract 6, and then we divided by 9, and then I simplified it. Okay? Okay, so on 14 it says solve the equation by factoring, so I just did our x. We ended up with a negative 21, and add together be negative 4, negative 7, positive 3. I set these to z minus 7 is equal to 0, and z plus 3 is equal to 0. Added 7, so I got z is equal to 7. Subtract 3, I got z is equal to negative 3. Okay, on number 15, it wanted us to use factoring, so I needed to use the x in the box because this is a 3, so I needed to do first times the last. I got 6, add together to give me 7. So then I've got 6 and 1, and I put my variables with it. I did my box. Here's my first term. There should be a square there, and there is my last term. What do they have in common? They have a 2. What does these have in common? A z. What does this have in common? A 3z. And what does this have in common? A 1. So then I took those and I set them to 0. And on the first one I subtracted 1, then I divided by 3, and I get negative 1/3. And over here I subtracted 2, and I got z is equal to negative 2. Okay? So now we're at 6. Okay, for number 16, the first thing that I did was I took out the 2 because they were all even. So I went through and I took out, oh my goodness, hold on. There we go, found you. Okay, so first thing I did was I took out the 2, so I got a squared minus 23a plus 126. I found out my a, b, and c. I used my quadratic equation and I plugged in all the numbers. So now I've got 23, and I've got plus or minus the square root of 529 minus 504. That ended up being the square root of 25. So I have 23 plus or minus the square root of 25, which is 5, and all over 2. So then I went down, and I said 23 plus 5 is 28 over 2 for 14, and 23 minus 5 is 18 over 2, so for 9. So that's how I got that answer. Okay, so number 17. First of all, I need to put it in standard form, so that's what I did here. I added 108 to both sides. Then I saw that 3 was in common, so then I pulled the 3 out, and I got y squared plus 13y plus 36. So my a was 1, my b was 13, my c was 36. Then I plugged it into the formula. So the opposite of b is negative 13 plus or minus the square root of 13 squared minus 4 times 1 times 36 all over 2a, which is 2 times 1. Negative 13 plus or minus the square root, and I did the math here. I got 169. Negative 4 times 36 is negative 144, all over 2. Negative 13 plus or minus the square root of 25 over 2, so negative 13 plus or minus 5 over 2. Then I did my two problems. Negative 13 plus 5, which is negative 8 over 2, which is negative 4. And then the other one I've got negative 13 minus 5, which is negative 18 over 2, which is negative 9. And that's how I got the two answers there. Okay, the last three. Okay, on number 18, 19, and 20, we're going to find the number of real solutions for the equation. And we are going to use the discriminant. So it's what's inside of the square root on our quadratic formula. So we're using that. So we've got b squared minus 4ac. So we've got x squared plus 6x plus 9. This is number 18 that we're doing. So we're identifying our a, which is 1, our b, which is 6, and our c, which is 9. And then we're going to go 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9. 6 times 6 is 36. I multiply this together. I get negative 4. Negative 4 times 9 is negative 36. And we get a 0. And if you get a 0 solution, you end up with, or a 0 answer, you end up with 1 solution. So that's how we got that. Okay, number 19. I went through and identified my a, which is 1, my b, which is 0, and my c, which is 17. I plugged them in here. 0 squared 0. Then I went negative 4 times 17, which I got negative 68. If it's a negative answer, it's no solution, so there are 0 solutions. And now the last one, we have got, okay, number 20, we have our a is 1, our b is negative 5, our c is positive 8. I put it into the discriminant. So negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. Negative 4 times 1 is 4. Negative 4 and negative 4 times 8 is negative 32. Keep, change, change. I get a negative 7. If you have a negative 7, you have a no solution. So it's 0 solutions. Another letter C. Okay, that is Chapter 9 test review. Hopefully you do well.